So I thought it'd be interesting to ask the questions again to myself a year onwards, and see really what I come up with, responding to my practice and my ideas, my philosophies and my theories. And the reason I'm using a mirror is really because there's no one really other to talk to. My practice relies heavily on communication with an audience. So this is the closest thing I could get, and a GoPro. So I hope you enjoy my critical positions piece. I think something that my practice really relies on is me not being able to sit still or to kind of rest on a single topic or subject. I think a lot because I'm constantly suggesting what I might be or might be confronted with. That might sometimes be some kind of like nettily walkway or path, because you have to be so critical when creating stuff, and we always forget like those words like play and do, but like it's really hard to define a practice, especially when you're, given the question, what is your art, what is your practice? You're an art student, you're a design student, you're from this heritage, you're from this kind of traditional background. I think there's something about these frameworks which stop the discourse of a practice. I don't know, but I'm kind of suggesting to you what it could possibly be, and maybe just for us having that conversation, that is my practice, that is what I do, and like, not to get so stuck up between the bushes and the nettles and other people's ideas and aesthetics. It's about really realising what you want to do at that given time, and that's why it's good to have lots of projects and ideas which are retrospective, which represent you as a personality. I think one of the things that I've developed the most since starting at the RCA was definitely my insight into sound and collaborative practice. They're two things I hadn't really tried before, because I just didn't feel like the institutions I was in beforehand really fit that framework for me. And maybe that's one of the challenges I've had. Oh shit! You could either be collaborative and not experimental, or experimental and definitely not collaborative because people just weren't interested. I think that I found how to spur that interest into my work through framing it in a way which can be discussed and isn't really closed off to people. And as much as my work relies on the digital, I think that I'm good at physically involving myself in my work and then maybe framing it in a virtual or digital way. I think there's something to be said about finding the balance within these frameworks of digital and metaphysical before you go ahead and try and engage with others. I think that even the framework of what's your practice when asked by an institution is something which provokes a lot of discomfort too, especially with people like myself who are experimental by nature. It's not really our role to discuss what our position is, because that means that it will one day remain stagnant. I think that sometimes it can be quite a bumpy road to just discern what you are, when really you're kind of just flowing and going with what you read and see at the time. My work's very nomadic, and again you can link that right back to the role of a conversation. I think it would be good to mention how lots of my work really relies on solving a problem, and I think maybe that's because I've come from a graphic design background academically and institutionally, that maybe a lot of the problems that were going on in my head and all these things I was trying to solve, I couldn't because I wasn't in the right environment. And this kind of need to justify stuff has come from involving myself in a incredibly rational style of design, such as the graphic arts. And now that's kind of leaked over into an experimental situation. I've been able to really enjoy that crisis of having to solve something, fixing it and making sure it makes sense, and where you can leave a bit of mystery for the viewer. These are things which were often shown in graphic design, like through wit or humour, but you were never really told to do them or kind of asked to inflict experimentation within design. It kind of is either experimental or rational. But now I'm studying experimental communication, my practice is allowing me to kind of fluctuate between the rational and the irrational, and that's really helped, I think. Being in somewhere where you can frame yourself as nothing and slowly involve yourself in subjects such as AI and discussion, seminars, crits. You know, you can start to really frame yourself as something without really settling for a set medium or presence, if you would consider that artistic.